What would you say if a cop looked at you and asked, "Do you know why I pulled you over?" Because that question is not small talk. It's bait to get you to confess before you even know the game you're in. Hit subscribe right now because what I'm about to show you could stop you from handing police their easiest win. And like this video so you can find it fast on the worst day, not after it's too late. You need this because that one simple question can turn a warning into a ticket into a search, and a search into handcuffs. The scary part is how normal it sounds. It feels polite. It feels harmless. It feels like you should just answer and move on. But that's exactly why it works. Let me show you exactly what's happening when that question gets asked. First, I'm going to show you why cops love that question so much. Then, I'm going to give you the exact line that keeps you from talking yourself into trouble. After that, you'll learn the sentence that blocks consent searches, and the question that helps end the stop instead of stretching it out. If you drive, this matters to you. If you have kids who drive, this matters to you even more. One bad answer can live in a police report forever, and once your own words are in that report, pulling them back is almost impossible. Here's the reality. Most traffic stops are not won or lost by what the officer sees. They're won or lost by what you say. Most people have no idea how fast they start helping the case against themselves. You get nervous, you start feeling silence, you try to sound honest. You say things like, "I was probably going a little fast," or "I didn't stop all the way," or "I'm sorry, I only had 2 beers." You think you're being respectful. What you're really doing is building evidence with your own mouth. I've analyzed over 200 body cam videos, and the pattern is always the same. The driver talks too much in the first 30 seconds. Then the officer has more reason to dig, more reason to delay, and more reason to ask the next question. That's why you need a plan before your window ever comes down. If you wait until you're scared, you'll say whatever pops into your head, and that is usually the wrong thing. So let's start with the first move, because this is the trap hidden inside the title. When an officer says, "Do you know why I pulled you over?" you do not guess, you do not explain, you do not confess. Here's the trick they don't want you knowing. That question is often designed to get an admission. If you say, "Yeah, I know I was speeding," you just gave them the thing they wanted most, your own words. You gave them a clean sentence they can repeat in court. You gave them something that sounds voluntary, natural, and believable. Instead, you stay calm and keep it short. You look at the officer and say this, "Officer, I don't want to guess or make any statements. Can you please tell me why you stopped me?" Word for word. Memorize that line. That answer does 3 things for you right away. First, it stays respectful. You're not fighting, you're not acting rude. Second, it stops you from admitting something you may not even have done. Third, it forces the officer to say the reason instead of getting it from you. Defense attorneys use this exact line in court because it shuts down the confession trap before it starts. Watch what happens. The officer now has to carry the conversation instead of letting you do the work for them. That matters because your goal is not to win an argument on the roadside. Your goal is to give them as little extra evidence as possible. Bad way. Most drivers say, "Yeah, I was probably speeding," or "I rolled that stop sign." Then the officer writes down your admission and the stop gets stronger. Good way. Smart drivers say, "Officer, I don't want to guess or make any statements. Can you please tell me why you stopped me?" And the officer has to rely on what they actually observed, not what you handed them. Now you might be thinking, won't that make me look guilty? No, talking less is not guilt. Talking less is smart. This comes straight from Supreme Court rulings about how your roadside statements can later be used. In Berkemer v. McCarty, the court made clear that traffic stops are serious enough that what you say there can matter a lot, even before formal arrest. In plain English, the side of the road is not a safe place to freestyle your explanation. If the officer already has a reason for the stop, your job is not to improve their case. Your job is to avoid making it worse. If you skip this tactic, you can talk yourself from a simple traffic issue into a bigger investigation. If you use it, you keep the stop inside its lane and protect yourself from your own panic. Have you ever been asked that exact question during a stop? Tell me in the comments what you said, because most drivers don't realize the mistake until later. Now, let's move to the second tactic, because even after you avoid the first trap, cops often keep fishing. They ask where you're coming from, where you're going, who you were with, whether you had anything to drink, why you seem nervous, whether there's anything illegal in the car. This is where you need your second line ready. You say, "Officer, here are my documents. I choose to remain silent and I do not want to answer questions." That's the line. Simple, clean. Hard to twist. You still hand over your license, registration, and insurance like you should. You still stay calm, but you stop feeding the interview. Let me show you exactly why this matters. The more random questions you answer, the more chances you give them to claim your story changed, your timeline felt off, or your behavior sounded suspicious. This is 100% legal. You have to provide the required documents. You do not have to narrate your evening. That difference can save you. Legal experts agree this is your strongest protection once the stop turns from traffic talk into criminal fishing. And yes, the wording matters. If you just sit there silent, some courts have treated silence differently than clearly saying you are invoking it. So don't make them guess. State it plainly. I choose to remain silent, and I do not want to answer questions. That line is respectful, direct, and easy to remember. It also helps you when you're nervous, because you don't have to invent a new response every time they ask something different. Bad way. Most drivers say, I'm coming from my friend's house. I only had one drink. Or I'm not nervous, I just hate cops. Then the officer starts stacking details and looking for cracks. Good way. Smart drivers say, Officer, here are my documents. I choose to remain silent and I do not want to answer questions. Then the conversation stops becoming an interview. There's another reason this works. Sometimes drivers think a little honesty will calm things down. Sometimes it does. A lot of times it does the opposite. You say you had one drink and now you're doing roadside tests. You say you're coming from a party and now the officer wants to know whose party, how long you were there, and whether anyone else in the car drank too. You say you're in a hurry and now they think you've got something to hide. Every answer creates 3 more questions. Your silence closes those doors. If you use this tactic, the stop stays about the mission of the stop. If you don't, you can accidentally turn routine questions into a full investigation. And if you're in a state where officers can lawfully require basic identification in certain situations, that still doesn't mean you have to answer every extra question. Name and documents are one thing, a full story is something else. The third tactic is the one that saves people from losing their privacy in seconds. If the officer asks to search your car, your bag, or anything inside, you say this: Officer, I do not consent to any searches. Those exact 8 words are gold. Say them clearly, say them calmly, say them one time, and if needed, say them again. Do not add jokes, do not add excuses. Do not say, I guess if you want. Do not say, I've got nothing to hide. That last one destroys people every day. If you consent, you just open the door. And once you open it, it is much harder later to challenge what happened. Schneckloth versus Bustamonte is the big case here. In plain English, the Supreme Court said, if you voluntarily say yes, that consent can make the search legal even if the officer never told you that you could refuse. That is why your no matters so much. Former police officers have confirmed this works because it changes the whole roadmap of the stop. Without your consent, the officer usually needs some other legal reason to search. Maybe they think they have probable cause. Maybe they claim something else. But you never want to be the one who made it easy. Watch what happens. The second you clearly refuse consent, you preserve your rights. Even if they search anyway, your refusal matters later. It shows you did not give permission. It shows you did not waive your protection. And that can become huge in court. Bad way. Most drivers say, sure, go ahead, I've got nothing to hide. Then a quick look turns into a full search and every item in the car becomes your problem. Good way. Smart drivers say, Officer, I do not consent to any searches. Then the officer has to justify any search without your permission. This is 100% legal. You're not required to help search yourself. And listen, refusing consent does not mean you start grabbing things, arguing, or blocking the officer. You never physically resist. You never reach suddenly. You never touch the officer. You use your words and nothing else. I do not consent to any searches. That's it. Calm voice, hands visible. Zero drama. If they search anyway, let them own that decision. You do not help. You do not fight. You do not talk yourself into more trouble. If you skip this line, you may hand away your strongest Fourth Amendment protection in under 2 seconds. If you use it, you force the officer to stand on real legal ground instead of your permission. Most people already clicked away. If you're still here, you're in the small group that will actually remember this when it counts. Drop a comment saying I'm still here, because the next part is how you stop the roadside fishing trip from going on forever. The fourth tactic is how you end the stop once the traffic business is done. Listen closely because this is critical. A traffic stop is supposed to be about the reason you were stopped. Ticket, warning, license check, registration, insurance. That basic mission. It is not supposed to turn into a never-ending wait while they keep tossing questions at you just to see what falls out. So once they've done the normal traffic stuff, you ask one clean question. Officer, am I being detained or am I free to go? Say it just like that. Not angry, not sarcastic, calm and steady. That question matters because it forces clarity. If you're free to go, the stop should end. If you're being detained, then they need a lawful reason to keep you there. Bad way. Most drivers say, are we done or what? Then the officer hears attitude and the stop gets even longer. Good way. Smart drivers say, Officer, am I being detained or am I free to go? Then the officer has to either end the stop or justify extending it. Rodriguez v. United States is the case you need to know here. In plain English, the Supreme Court said police cannot drag out a traffic stop longer than needed just to go hunting for unrelated crimes unless they have a real legal reason. That is huge for you. It means the stop has a mission, and it is not supposed to become a free bonus investigation because you looked nervous. At the same time, you need to understand one more case so you don't make a bad move. In Pennsylvania versus Mimms, the Supreme Court said an officer can order the driver out of the car during a lawful traffic stop. So if they say, "Step out," you step out. You do not argue on the roadside. You comply, and you keep using your lines. "I choose to remain silent. I do not consent to any searches. Am I being detained, or am I free to go?" That combo is strong because it protects you without turning the stop into a shouting match. Here's the reality. These tactics work together. Berkemer versus McCarty tells you your roadside words can matter. Schneckloth v. Bustamonte tells you your consent can make a search legal. Rodriguez v. United States tells you the stop cannot be stretched out forever without a valid reason. Pennsylvania versus Mimms tells you the officer can order you out, so you comply without giving up your mouth. And Hebel versus 6th Judicial District is the reminder that in some places, police can require basic identifying information during a lawful detention, but that still does not mean you must answer every fishing question about your night. This comes straight from Supreme Court rulings. In 7th grade English, here's what all of that means for you. Give the required documents. Don't confess. Don't consent. Don't argue. Ask if you're free to go. That is the simple playbook. Legal experts agree this is your strongest protection because it keeps you respectful while keeping your rights alive. Now let's run the real-world version so you can hear how this sounds in your own head. You're driving home at night. Lights flash behind you. You pull over safely. Your hands stay visible. The officer walks up and says, "Do you know why I pulled you over?" The wrong way starts fast. You say, "Yeah, I was probably doing 10 over." Now the officer has an admission. Then they ask where you're coming from. You say, "A friend's place." They ask if you had anything to drink. You say, "Just one beer." Now the stop changes tone. They ask if there's anything illegal in the car. You laugh and say, "No, go ahead and look." Now you just gave consent. 10 minutes later, your whole car is spread across the shoulder and you're wondering how a simple stop got this ugly. Now watch the right way. Same lights, same stop, same opening question. You say, "Officer, I don't want to guess or make any statements. Can you please tell me why you stopped me?" They tell you the reason. You hand over your documents and say, "Officer, here are my documents. I choose to remain silent and I do not want to answer questions." They ask if there's anything illegal in the car. You say, "Officer, I do not consent to any searches." If they tell you to step out, you step out calmly because you know they can order that. You keep your hands visible. You say nothing extra. After the ticket or warning process is done, you ask, "Officer, am I being detained or am I free to go?" That's the clean version. No confession, no consent, no roadside debate, just control. You did not make the stop disappear, but you did stop yourself from making it worse. That is a huge win. Next week, I'm revealing what to say when cops claim they smell weed, and that one gets people searched every single day. Subscribe right now so you don't miss it, because that script may be even more important than this one. So lock these lines into your head right now. First, when they ask why they pulled you over, don't guess and don't confess. Second, give your documents, then clearly say you choose to remain silent. Third, if they ask to search, say you do not consent to any searches. Fourth, once the traffic business is done, ask if you're being detained or free to go. You do not need to be rude to protect yourself. You do not need to be aggressive to stay safe. You just need a plan before the pressure hits. Hit subscribe so you catch that weed smell video next week. Smash like if this just saved you from saying the wrong thing during a future stop. And drop a comment telling me which exact line you're going to memorize first. Stay safe out there.